All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon or this morning or this evening, depending where you are. As Lydia mentioned, this will be recorded. So if you do not want to be on the recording, please do keep yourself on mute. You do not need your cameras on either, so you can go ahead and turn those off. Unless you come and ask a question, and then of course you could come off mute. And that goes for the chat as well. If you put anything in chat, it's captured in the recording. So if you don't want to be in any of that, just stay on mute and you'll be good. Um, my name is Dawn Nickham. I am the past chair for the Council for Professional Registration. And we're very excited to speak with all of you today and give you a little more information about becoming an RQAP certified professional. And I'm going to ask Franco to introduce himself.
Yes.
Well,
Welcome, everyone. I'm Franco, and I'm the current GLP member at large on the council. And welcome, everyone. And it's going to be a very informative session, and we hope to have all your questions answered.
okay. So to get us started out, we are going to throw up a poll just so we can see who is doing what at this point, what you're thinking about. So please just choose what is your current relationship to the RQAP program, whether you're considering it in the future, you're taking one soon, you've taken it but did not pass and want to try again, your credential is lapsed and you want to re-earn it, you actually own a credential but never been through the re-registration process, or you've also currently re-registered. And then if you have an other, go ahead and share in chat. So go ahead and submit those.
And while you are, I just want to introduce myself as well. My name is Lydia. I am the staff member who is assigned to the RQAP program. So if you are emailing with your questions, you're probably talking to me.
How's the responses going there, Lydia?
Looks like we got about 75% in there. So I will go ahead and close the poll.
Okay, great.
And it looks like the majority of folks have never taken an RQAP exam and are either thinking about taking one in the future or are planning to take it in this upcoming exam window.
Fantastic. So you are in the right place, is what I'm going to
Yes, you,
tell you.
yes, you are.
Okay, so we're going to start out just giving you a little bit about the state of the program. If you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, Lydia. All right, so currently we have 287 certified RQAP GCP folks. We have 494 GLP folks. And then we actually have 27 individuals who have done both exams, which is kind of amazing. Over the life of the exam, our passing rate is around 70, 71%. And for each cycle, we have around in the low 40s. So GCP around 29, GLP around 46, and sometimes that varies. We're going to talk a little bit about the passing rate over the last few years, and I'll give you a little more information about that momentarily. All right, so in order to be eligible to sit for the RQAP exam, you must have either 2 years of full-time GCP or GLP quality assurance. And we have quality assurance underlined for a reason, because we do get individuals who are very experienced in the labs or in the pharmaceutical industry, but don't quite have those 2 years of the actual QA experience. So that's really important. And that's 2 years with a bachelor's degree. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, then you need 4 years of experience in either GCP or GLP.
And just to note as well, since this is sometimes a point of confusion, if you are applying for the RQAP GCP exam, your 2 years of experience does need to be in GCP, and if you're applying for the GLP exam, your 2 years of experience does need to be in GLP. Unfortunately, it can't be 2 years of combined experience or 2 years of experience in a different discipline. You do have to have the experience in the discipline for which you're applying.
Thank you for adding that, Lydia. Yeah, really important. We do see those come through a little bit. Okay, so full-time QA experience. What are we looking at? We really are looking at, for your role, that your role is 100% QA focused. Or if it's not, so you may have a role that's split between an operations role and a QA role, or maybe more managerial role and a QA role. We're looking for that combined, experience. So for example, if you have 50% of QA, maybe you're splitting it between doing actual QA work and doing managerial work, then you're really only 50% QA. And we would look that you need 4 years in the role with a bachelor's degree, or 8 years in a role without a bachelor's degree. And that's the equivalent of 4 years. It doesn't, again, you might be doing something 100% for 1 year, but then your role gets split. So do look at that. And we do calculate that when we are looking at your CV, and we do ask that you're putting those percentages on your CV. Critical, next bullet point, you have to have auditor inspection of processes, both for GCP and GLP. So, you do want to have things around computer system validation. For GCP, things around informed consent. For GLP, that around test and investigational product accountability kind of things, adverse events, study reports, vendor activities, our clinical folks, again, the clinical sites, etc. So we really want to see that you have that experience. And it's really critical you have that experience, because that is what the exam is focused on. The questions are going to be around that. If you don't have that experience, unfortunately, you're going to struggle, and we don't want people to struggle. We really want to make sure that you understand those areas. Audits and inspections critical. Also, you should understand, again, about SOP writing. How should you write an SOP? You may not be writing the SOPs particularly, but you're probably supporting the development and authoring of the SOPs. How they're reviewed and overall management, so those quality management system kind of pieces. And then again, analyzing, evaluating, and advising in matters related to GCP or GLP. So we want to make sure that you have a really good grasp of all the regulations, and that you're able to give advice based on that. You're going to have scenarios on your exam that will ask you to think about this and what the best answer would be. So again, having that background is critical. Franco, do you want to add anything to this?
Not much, but for GLPs also don't forget it's like in-process inspections, reviewing reports, actually involved in facility audits, process-based audits. Those are basically involving GLP. As long as you're not involved in the study and you're doing just the QA portion, then you're qualified as eligibility of QA experience.
Great point. Great point. And, we are giving you some backgrounds here. There is a detailed content outline that is part of the eligibility handbook that gives you even more detail of what we're looking for. You can be asked questions in any of those areas. Okay, so what doesn't count? And this is really critical. If you may have experience in working under GCP or GLP, but that does not equate to QA experience. You really have to have that specific QA experience. So for example, we have had GCP people that were maybe a CRA for a number of years. We've actually had people that all their work is in clinical operations, and they might just put in that all of that was 100% QA. It's not QA. You do have to know GCP. You do have to know the regulations, absolutely. Same for study directors. They do need to know GLP. They need to understand the regulations. They're working under them, but they're not doing the QA work. So, why is this important? Well, these exams are not designed more not to just test base knowledge, not just base knowledge of the regulations, but really the application of QA principles to practical situations. So you have to know more than just the subject matter contained in the reference materials. You have to be studying the regulations. Studying the regulations without QA experience is not enough. And we have seen that, where, individuals struggle with the exam because they don't have the QA experience. So that's why that is so important. All right. Okay, so how much does it cost to take the exam? Oh, there we go, right there. Thank you, Lydia.
Sorry about
I
that,
love it when
folks.
PowerPoint goes rogue. It's okay. It's all good. It's good. So we do look at these fees on a regular basis, and they can change at any time. But right now, this is where they are set. If you're a non-member, it's $625. If you're a member of a MOU, so Memorandum of Understanding Organization, that includes RQA, JSQA, and many other international organizations. If you don't know if they're a member or not, again, send that email to rqa@sqa.com and we can tell you if they are part of an MOU and you would get the discount. So that is a slight discount. And then the last one is SQA members. You get the best deal, the 450. I'm gonna put my board hat on for a minute. Just join SQA the year you do it because really you get the best deal and you are going to get a lot of other resources. So I'm gonna put in a plug for that. If you're a resident of an outreach country, and those are defined as low income, lower middle income, and upper middle income, as defined by the World Bank, we have a full listing of those countries that fall into that. If you're a member of the outreach country, then the cost is $150. Okay, so these are the regular costs of this. Additionally, if you miss the registration time, you really want to take the exam, there is a late fee of $50. So, we can still accommodate that up to a certain point, and the dates are always given out in the email and on the SQA website. Or if you need English speaker accommodations, that does cost an extra $50. Those are really fees that we have to pay to the exam facilities for this, so that's really cost we're passing through. However, if you do have a disability and you ask for special accommodations, that is offered at no cost. So all of those things in there. So pretty straightforward fees, and we're actually pretty happy with where our fees are today. I have to tell you, I looked at another exam just recently and it was much more expensive. So I think we are pretty in line with what is out there and hopefully a reasonable amount for this very important credential.
And just to note, since Dawn mentioned the deadlines, the regular deadline is going to be next Monday, the 9th of February. And then we do accept applications through Monday, the 23rd of February. And if you submit an application after the 9th, that's when that $50 fee is going to come into effect.
Thank you. Okay, so coming right up on it. Okay, and then last piece, let's talk about exam delivery options, and then I'm going to hand over to Franco after this. So in general, we do recommend, if possible, that you visit a test center. It's really the best way to take the exam. Having it as a proctor's exam is actually not a little, it's much more complicated than being able to go to a test center. But if a test center is not reasonably around, from you, you can take it from your home or office. However, as we note here, there is a lot more issues with that there's a high incidence of test exam termination because it is proctored, what technology and the environment that you take the exam in, there's a lot more pieces around that. So, taking it on site, the best. If you need to, we can do live proctor. So that means someone will watch you as you take the exam. It's always an interesting thing. I've taken a proctored exam, not for RQAP before. It is an interesting thing. You can only have one screen or monitor. You can't use a touch screen. You have to have a keyboard and mouse for entry. You have to have a webcam. You have to have a private internet connection. So either you're plugged into the computer or no one else is using Wi-Fi if you're using Wi-Fi. No VPNs. The computer has to actually pass a system test. So you have to use, you'll have the system test and then you'll have to use that same computer and internet for the exam. You cannot leave the testing area, not even for bathroom breaks. No one else can be there, not even your children. It must be totally private. You cannot speak while testing, so you cannot read the questions aloud to yourself. You can't have food, gum, no tobacco, no headphones, no books, notes, paper, no wallets or handbags, no coats or dressing. Head coverings and hats are permitted, but you may be asked to hold them up for the proctor's inspection, and your eyes must be visible at all times. And then the wall behind you must be blank and free of distractions. And you will be checking in to require you to take photos of yourself on the day of the test, your ID and testing space. So it's really, there are a lot of complications of doing it, or a lot more complicated taking it on site. Even within the testing center, when you go into the testing center, you will not be able to take anything with you. You will need your ID, and it needs to be, an official government type ID is what they're going to ask for to ensure that you are you. And then in your testing space, again, you're not going to be able to take anything in there, because you're restricted. So you can't take any books, or your purse will get locked in a locker, all that sort of thing, or any other backpack, whatever you brought with you. They will lock that up in a locker during your testing as well. They do allow you a break during the testing if you have to go and use the restroom. However, if you do go out for a break, you will not be allowed to go back to any part of the test that you had completed previously. So you can't go back and check answers. So the best thing is if you can go through, take the whole test and get through it, that will be the best experience for you. But other than that, we do encourage you to do it on site.
So, and this is just a note, talking about bathroom breaks, there are no bathroom breaks if you're testing remotely. If you are testing in person, as Don said, you will be able to leave your site to use the restroom, but it will still count towards your total time. So it's not as if the clock stops when you use the restroom.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Franco to continue.
Sure, no problem. So the next thing we're going to discuss is exam development and how are the RQAP exams created. So, and there are two exam committees that are created. There's one for GCP and one for GLP, each run by their own chair. And basically, there's also job task analysis. There's a contact outline based on results, exam items written and selected to fulfill contact outline. There's a passing score study, exam administrative, item analysis, more exam items written, reviewed, and pilot test regularly. The RQP can earn, and the good thing about this is the RQAPs can earn re-registration credits for being appointed to an exam committee. The registration committee or writing exam items. So
Franco,
these,
if you don't mind me stepping
yes,
in, I just want to give,
sure,
since CPR doesn't work as closely with some of this development process, I just wanted to provide a
sure.
little bit more of a background on some of these tasks. So, for example, the job task analysis is a process in which members of this exam committee get together and look at the tasks that sort of make up the work of a professional in GCP or GLP, and they look at the content outline and see if that still makes sense. Then they send out a survey to folks who are in the field and they say, how often do you do this task? How important is it to you? And then the content outline is written or updated based on those results. So a content outline, just very quickly, is going to look something like this. Give me just a moment to switch the screen share.
Sure.
Content outline is going to look something like this. You'll see that it's set up in terms of the percentage of time that, in terms of the percentage of these specific activities and sub-activities. And these percentages are adjusted every so often, approximately every 5 years, although that timeline can be adjusted by CPR, to make sure that it is up to date with the actual state of the field. Again, based on that group discussion and the survey that gets sent out to participants. And then, as the survey says, we are looking at writing the content outline based on those results. And then exam items are written or selected to fulfill the content outline. So for example, you saw that a certain task was 11% on the content outline. That means that 11% of the items on the exam will cover that area. And then there is a passing score study, which essentially is when, again, members of the exam committee or current folks who hold the credential will go through those questions that have been written and test them out and rate them on how difficult they are. And then the exam group that we contract with, whose profession is psychometricians, whose job essentially is making sure that the exam is valid mathematically. We'll equate it to past versions of the exam just to make sure that it's approximately as difficult as the previous exam was. So there's a lot of hard work and math and statistics that goes into writing these exams. And then after an exam is written, there is an item analysis where the psychometricians again look at these exams and see how they're performing based on other exams. Is the question really hard? Like no one's getting it right? Is the question really easy? Like everyone's getting it right? Is the question is the question only right, only selected correctly by people who passed the exam, or is it selected correctly by people who didn't pass the exam? And then when an item is flagged as fulfilling one of these weird situations, then it goes back to the exam committee who look at it and say, is this really still a good question? Does it still make sense? Does the answer still make sense? So forth and so on. And again, as noted here, more exam items are being written, reviewed, and pilot tested regularly on each exam that is taken. 15 questions don't actually go towards the score of the exam taker. They are being pilot tested and will be analyzed to see if they're valid questions or how the statistics look after the exam is concluded. And so my apologies, Franco. I will pass it back off to you.
That's very good detail of each one. I have to say some things because I was part of the last year's item review and it's a lot of work. I can tell you that. All right, next slide. So how can I prepare for the RQAP exam? So experience is very key. We require at least 2 years of experience because exam is not designed to be passed through study alone. So that's what I said. The minimum we have is 2 years in order to take the exam. But in reality, basically, if you have a little bit more experience, like 3, 4, 5 years, you would get more experience in the QA field and get more experience in sense of what the QA function is. But we do, but 2 years is the minimum. But our recommendation is that basically to have a little bit more years of QA experience before taking challenge of taking exam. Because the exam is not exactly easy. It's a challenging exam and it requires a lot of experience and also not only knowledge. It's not only about reading your regulations, it's able to apply the regulations in everyday QA functions. So there are resources that you can have. There's the RQP candidate handbook, which has the contact outline and the exam references. There are practice exams like GCP for GCP and also for GLP. There are RQP candidate connect forums. If you notice, there are on SCA Connect, you have a forum for the GCP and one for GLP. And there are study group recordings for GCP and GLP also. Anything else you want to add in, Dawn? No? That's it? No?
I think even if you go to the study groups, you still need to have the experience. So the study groups will help, but they won't give you everything you need. That's one I
Exactly.
wanted to add.
Exactly. Okay, next slide. So once you've had the RQA, you got the RQAP credential. The next thing in the step is that you have to keep your RQAP credential, which basically every 3 years you need to re-register in order to do it. So what it counts through RQA registration? Like for example, 1 hour of education includes 1 unit. Other activities awarded units as described in an SOP on the website. There is an SOP on the SQA website under the RQAP program, which requires what is considered credits towards the RQP re-registration. So the total number is 48 units every 3 years. You need to accumulate 48 units every 3 years, which half of those have to be discipline specific. Like for GLP, you need GLP. For GCP, you need GCP specific. And submit everything online. Everything is submitted online. Yes, you may have to wait for approval, but as we have a volunteer re-registration committee that looks at these activities that you submit and approves or disapproves them. But we will be in touch if we need to be more information after its review. Your best chance of quick approval is through documentation. So if you provide as much documentation to prove that you get those points, provide it. You can re-register without paying for any conferences or training courses. It might be harder, but it can be done.
And I do want to point out a couple things with the re-registration. Absolutely, you can do that. If you're a member of SQA, there is lots of things you can do in the volunteer work that help with re-registration. And if you're a member, even if you're not a member of SQA, we offer tons and tons of webinars every year that, even if you're not a member, are fairly low cost and can be a way to get your re-registration credits. But even your membership and in other organizations like ACRP, there's a few. I know I don't know all of them on the GLP side, Franco, but I know there's a few of them on the there's the one
Yeah,
chemical one that I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, there's a few of them out there that you definitely can be members of. You can go to their courses, and as long as it's content related to GCP, GLP, it's out there. The other one is through SBIA and FDA. They offer a lot of free webinars as well that you can also get credit for. So there's lots of opportunities out there that you should be able to get it. And with all of these things, you're going to go through
yeah.
that.
So basically, yeah, there are low or no cost registration activities other than going to a conference that you have to pay for. There's in-house training by your organization, except for SOP training. I've had a lot of those that try to claim RQAP units through SOP training, but in reality, it's basically the other training. You can have a GLP training course, or your organization is giving a training on specific topics. That can be counted as an activity for for registration. Present a webinar, conference session, etc. That's also free. And once you present, you can be a speaker and you can get points for those. Attend a webinar. Like John says, SQA has a lot of free webinars for members. So basically, you can accumulate a lot of points through a lot of the webinars that are offered. Serve as an unelective or appointed board or committee member. Be part of a committee that you're elected in. Could be, for example, on the SQA board. You can be on our CPR. You can be on, for example, any of the committees or specialty sections that you become chair. Those you can also do, of course, serve as a volunteer committee or specialty chair. Write an article write an article publication. Be a mentor or mentee. That also counts towards points, review conference abstracts, and help with exam development activities that was mentioned as being part of the review items or writing items. You get points for those. So there are many, many things that you can do that's low or no cost at all, without going to paying for a conference or something like that. So yeah. Does anyone care if I'm an RQAP? So that's the biggest question that's always asked. So they surveyed, I think, 210 respondents through this, and they had a lot of like directors. I'm not really sure about this slide, but I think we'll move on to the next one. That sort of explains, I think. So the top benefits. So this is what they said through this survey that they have. So top benefits of a QA employee holding a QAP. There have been confirmed that an employee has a working knowledge of the necessary regulations and tasks of a QA professional, which is about 76% have said that. Serves as a good goal for QA employees to contribute their professional growth and knowledge, which is about 69% said that. Contributes to a strong, knowledgeable, and reliable QA function within the organization. Increases the confidence that the current and future clients have in work we do, and provides justification to keep our QA employees trained, as well educated, because they need continuing education hours to renew their credentials, which is basically based of what the top benefits of having RQAP, JLP, or RQAP, GCP credential. Next slide. So what benefits does registrars see from the RQB credentials? We have asked 144 registrars to rate how much of the credential benefits them on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being not helpful and 5 extremely helpful. So being hired for or promoted on the job you wanted. So 55 rated the credential as 4 or 5, which is a good thing. One respondent said senior positions require the credential at their organization, which I have heard about that, but not many I've seen up here where I am. I haven't seen that being said, but it's a good thing. Earn a higher salary than without the credential. 39% rated this as 4 or 5. Helps force the registers to complete continuing education. So this is a good thing. So basically having an RQAP credentials gives you the opportunity that you continue, in order to keep it, you need to continue the training. So 90% rated this as 4 or 5. So 57% of the respondents companies paid for continuing education fees to maintain the RQP. So this is a good thing. So there are many companies that will help you pay for being re-registering every 3 years. There are many companies that do this for us, do for them. Okay. So also, especially check out the website. So lots of commonly asked questions are found there if you want to know about it. So quick links like the GCP exam, the GLP exam, registration, and very important, the frequently asked questions, which basically any more questions, you can just basically email rqap@sqa.org anytime. I think that's it. Is that the last slide? Yeah.
Yeah. And Lydia knows 99.9% of the answers. Point one come to us that say, I can't answer this one. So can, one of you answer?
Yeah, Lydia is the person to
She is the
go
guru.
first, the guru of it. So now we're going to open up the floor to any questions that any of the attendees have. Think we can put them in the chat. I think put them in the chat, or is there a Q&A section? I don't know. So
It's
Go
in
ahead and
chat.
put them in the chat or raise your hand, and we can unmute you if you'd like to speak. Lauren Farrow asks, will the practice exam ever be updated to the difficulty of the actual exam? It is way too easy and the study group goes over the practice exam.
Yeah, it's a great question, Lauren, and we have discussed it. The challenge is that developing that practice exam was quite a challenging undertaking that was done quite some time ago. And it's just we haven't been able to prioritize it up. So, we have talked about it. We even talked about taking the practice exams down at one point because we know that they're not the level of difficulty, but what we really feel like you can get from it is that you get a sense of how the exam questions, the format, and what it might look like partly for the exam. So it has been discussed. It is continuing to be discussed. I'm not gonna say it's never going to happen. But there are some other priorities that CPR has been working on over the last couple of years. Things like, and I'll bring it up because I think it's out there. We're looking at developing a couple other credentials to have besides GCP and GLP, and those are where our focus has been over the last couple of years.
yeah,
It's not just us writing more questions. It also involves PTI, and we would have to budget for that. So I'm going to say probably not anytime soon. But I do, we did put some caveats around it to let people know that just because you pass this doesn't mean you're going to pass the exam.
Just a
Yeah, I
quick
mean,
note that, oh,
oh,
sorry.
yeah, I can see it. I can go ahead and read it. So maybe old questions that are outdated and removed if there are any that are more difficult types of these questions. Yeah, it again, it would still mean us going through that, but it's a great suggestion. We can certainly take that back to CPR. So thank you. Thank you for interacting.
And just a quick note, PTI, as Dawn mentioned, is Professional Testing Inc. And those are our psychometricians who I mentioned, whose job it is to sort of organize the exam development activities and make sure that some of these things are statistically viable and relevant.
So the percentage of people taking the exam pass and fail. So historically, we've been around 70, 71%. For exam pass and fail, I will share with you and did bring it up that our more recent numbers have been a little bit lower, more in the 50% or 60%, depending on the exam cycle and depending which credential we're talking about. We are looking at that and have been looking at that for the past 2 years I've been on CPR. I know we'll continue to look at that because we do want people to be successful. We do want the right people taking the exam, and we want people to be successful. So we are looking, but one of the most important things, Franco emphasized it, I'm going to emphasize it, the experience. If you have good, solid, all around experience, you are most likely going to do fine. Look at the detailed content outline and think, have I done these things? So if I only have audited once or twice, for these,
Mm,
especially for, GLP, I think, I don't even know if that's possible, but GCP, if I've only audited once or twice, you're probably not going to do
yeah.
well. If I've
What I
only
c-
seen audits,
yeah.
you're not going to do well. Franco, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What I can say about the GLP is that there's these days I've seen it and I've seen it in my own companies that there's a division in QA also. There are people that does certain types of data and some other people that do certain other data. So like for example, there are people that work in because in GLP involves toxicology studies, but there has been a group that does only the lab portion of it, the supporting part of it, and people have been auditing just that. So when they want to do the exam, and there are people that come up to me in my own company that want to do the RQEP exam. And there were people that actually only do the lab portion of it. And I told them like, in order to able to do the RQP exam, you need to know everything, including the toxicology part of it. So I sort of chose them that you should get more experience. So I try to get them more experience in working on the other side before they can try to get for the exam. It's just not that I don't want them to do it. I just want them to pass and give the good rate and knowing that going into the exam, they know everything that they can.
Yep. So we'll continue. So, if you have that experience, you likely have a better chance of doing well. But just remember, it's not just 2 years of experience or 4 years of experience. It's 2 years of experience that encompasses or more that encompasses everyone. I'm someone who took it at 2 years and I passed.
Hmm.
But I know there are people that have struggled, in that same thing. So that sometimes when we get CVs, and if you happen to submit, and we get your CV and we look at it and we say we don't think this person is eligible, we really are trying to give you good feedback because we want to set you up for success. We want to make sure that you have the requisite experience in there. So that's the feedback we try to give to you and suggest of what other types of experience will help you. Okay. Any other questions? Take silence as none. So I want to thank everybody for attending today. Lydia will wrap us up here in a second. I do want to say again, if you have more questions, please reach out at any time. We really, we are here to help you, and we want to make sure that people are successful. We think it's great. We love having these credentials. We actually love it enough that we ran for CPR and have been part of the organization. And we encourage people to do this. So if anything comes up at any time, please reach out to the email, and we will get back to you. Lydia, you want to take us home?
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you to Dawn, thank you to Franco, and thank you to Ashley, one of our new CPR members who has been lurking in the background and observing. And thank you to all of you for being here. Um, as they've said, and I'll say it again, rqap@sqa.org. That'll take you right to me. And if you have a question that I can't answer, I'll pass it on to CPR. We do want you to do well. We do want to be there for you. And we're happy you're interested, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.